My family backed my sister's affair with my husband, calling it modern. During dessert, I waved. The servers in DNA tests and stolen money lit up the screen, and Mom's jaw dropped. Tonight, I learned that some betrayals don't just shatter your world, they expose the treacherous quicksand it was built on all along. The truth about my family, my husband, my half-sister, and even my own mother was a punch to the gut that left me breathless, but also, finally, free. I remember my hands trembling as I adjusted the linen napkin for the third time, meticulously, folding it into a perfect triangle for each crystal glass. My grandmother's bone-white china with its delicate gold trim gleamed under the dining room chandelier. Everything had to be perfect. Tonight, a flawless facade for the performance I'd been rehearsing for weeks. The memory still burned 3 weeks ago, standing in our walk-in closet, reaching for Jace's suit. The receipt that fluttered from his pocket. Oceanfront King Suite, Carmel Valley Lodge, $429 per night. Business expenses, he'd claimed. But his business meeting was supposedly in Sacramento. That one small, glaring discrepancy had unraveled my entire life. The doorbell jolted me from the agonizing flashback. I smoothed my black dress, checked my reflection, and opened the door with a practiced smile. Marin, my half-sister, Rowan, swept in, trailing a cloud of coconut and sea salt. Her blonde hair, her impeccable boutique owner style, everything about her always seemed effortless. The table looks amazing. Though I thought you said 8 people, it's only set for 6. Plans changed, I said, taking her designer coat. Smaller gathering. She looked at me, a flicker of confusion, then shrugged. Well, intimate is always better. Is Jace home yet? Just the casual mention of my husband's name sent a fresh jolt through my chest. Running late as usual. You know Jace and his client meetings. Oh, I certainly did. The bell rang again. My mother, Evelyn, made her grand entrance, a vision in emerald green, commanding attention as always. Darling, she air-kissed my cheek, her eyes already scanning the table. You've put out the Haviland. Interesting choice. I would have used the Wedgwood for a dinner. This important. Of course she would. Nothing I ever did quite measured up to her impossibly high standards. The Haviland was grandmother's favorite, I replied, my voice deliberately light. Yes. Well, she sniffed, inspecting a fork. I suppose tradition has its place. Rowan, sensing the shift, jumped in. Mom, did you see the new spring collection at my boutique? Nordstrom's. Considering 3 pieces. My mother beamed, instantly animated. That's wonderful news. I always said you had the business sense in this family. Then the front door opened without a knock. Jace, my husband of 8 years. He strode in, handsome, confident, the kind of man who photographed beautifully at charity events. Strong jaw, kind eyes that crinkled when he smiled. Eyes that lied. Sorry I'm late. He kissed my cheek, his cologne mingling with something else, something floral and achingly familiar. Traffic was brutal coming from downtown. Not downtown. I bit back the words. Perfect timing, I said instead. We're just waiting for Talia. As if on cue, the doorbell chimed. My best friend, Talia, entered with a tall, unfamiliar man. Everyone, this is Nash, she announced smoothly. He's a new waiter at Bellini's. Helping me tonight as a favor. Nash gave a polite nod. Only Talia and I knew he was actually a licensed private investigator specializing in surveillance. We settled around the table. Wine poured, appetizers served. The conversation flowed with practiced ease. I played my part, attentive wife, dutiful daughter, supportive sister. All the while I watched Rowan's eyes flit nervously to Jace whenever she thought no one was looking. The boutique is doing amazingly well, Rowan announced, gesturing with her wine glass. We've expanded to a second location. That's quite an investment, I commented, my voice neutral. Commercial real estate isn't cheap in La Jolla. My mother swelled with pride. Good business sense pays off. Rowan always had the business acumen in the family. Unlike me, the unspoken implication hung heavy in the air. Speaking of business, Jace interjected that conference in Carmel last month might lead to some exciting opportunities. The oceanfront setting really inspires creative thinking. Rowan's hand froze mid-reach for her water glass. A flash of pure panic crossed her face before she recovered. Carmel is beautiful this time of year, she murmured. I discreetly checked my watch. 8:59 p.m. Precisely as planned. I'd like to propose a toast, I announced, rising from my seat. The crystal felt cool and solid in my fingers. To family, I paused, meeting each pair of eyes around the table. And to truth. At exactly 9 p.m., Nash stepped forward from his position by the kitchen door. Mr. Sullivan, he said clearly, you've been served. The confusion on Jace's face would have been comical if it hadn't been shattering what was left of my heart. I walked calmly to the credenza and pressed a button on a remote. The dining room television flickered to life, displaying crystal-clear security footage from the Carmel Valley Lodge. Jace and Rowan walked into frame, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back as they checked in together. The dining room fell into an impossible silence. Jace's face drained of color. Rowan's eyes filled with tears. My mother's sharp intake of breath cut through the quiet. Marin, Evelyn said, her voice tight with controlled panic. You're making a terrible mistake. I looked at the three people who should have loved me most, who instead conspired behind my back, and felt something hard and certain settle in my chest. No, I replied, my voice steady for the first time in years. I believe you three already made that mistake. The leather portfolio felt heavy in my hands, not from its physical weight, but from the devastating evidence inside. My fingers traced the embossed initials, W.S. Walter Sullivan, the man I believed was my father. I'd received it as a law school graduation gift. Before we move on to dessert, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, I'd like to share some interesting financial documents. I spread them across the table with the precision of a dealer at a high-stakes poker game. Bank statements, transfer records, loan documents, a trail of betrayal printed in black and white. $72,000, I said, tapping a highlighted figure, transferred from our home equity line of credit to Coastal Boutique LLC over the past 3 years. Jace's face went even paler. He reached for his water glass, but knocked it over instead. Crystal shattered. Water pooled on my grandmother's tablecloth. No one moved to clean it up. Marin, I can explain, he stammered, his voice cracking. I was investing in family, in Rowan's future. Rowan's mascara left black tracks down her cheeks. You don't understand how hard it is to start a business, she whispered. The bank wouldn't approve my loan application. So you convinced my husband to steal from our home instead. The words tasted bitter on my tongue. My mother's shock transformed right before my eyes, from genuine surprise to calculated damage control. Her spine straightened, her jaw set. I recognized the look. It was the same expression she wore when explaining to neighbors why I wouldn't be attending the prestigious private school that had accepted me. Too unconventional for Marin's sensitive nature, she'd said, while enrolling Rowan there the following year. Darling, business arrangements between family members are complicated, Evelyn said, reaching for my hand across the table. I pulled back before she could touch me. I'm sure Jace meant to discuss this with you. For 3 years. I turned to Nash. Mr. Elliot, would you play recording number 2, please? Nash nodded, tapping his phone. My mother's voice filled the dining room, crisp and clear. Asterisk, we have to keep Marin compliant. She can't find out about the trust fund. Asterisk, Jace's response followed. Asterisk, I'm handling it. She trusts me completely. Asterisk, my mother's laugh, cold and dismissive. Asterisk, well, she always did prefer comfortable allusions to uncomfortable truths. Asterisk, the recording ended. The silence that followed felt thick enough to cut with the unused dessert knives. Talia's hand rested on my shoulder, a quiet anchor in the storm. I hadn't realized I was shaking until her touch steadied me. That recording is illegal. My mother stood abruptly, lunging for my phone on the table. Nash intercepted her with a smooth, practiced movement. California is a two-party consent state for recordings, I said, the attorney in me taking over. But that particular conversation happened on the outdoor patio at La Valencia Hotel. Public space, no reasonable expectation of privacy. Perfectly admissible. Jace stared at me as if seeing me for the very first time. How long have you been investigating us? Long enough to recognize the pattern. I met each of their eyes. Asterisk, you're overthinking again, Marin. You always think everyone's out to get you. You've always been the dramatic one. Asterisk, I'd heard those phrases so often I could recite them in my sleep. The comments had seemed separate, harmless on their own. Together, they formed the architecture of doubt they'd built around me. Nash cleared his throat. I'm Nash Elliott, licensed private investigator with Elliott Investigations. I've documented a pattern of financial misappropriation and personal betrayal, spanning approximately 3 years. 3 years, I repeated. Exactly when Rowan's boutique opened. My sister flinched. The money, the affair, the lies, they didn't just happen. My voice remained level while something primal screamed inside me. You didn't just betray my marriage. You betrayed my trust in all of you. From my portfolio, I withdrew a final document. The paper felt impossibly light for the weight of truth it carried. DNA test results, I explained, sliding them toward my mother. Walter Sullivan had type AB blood. Mine is type O, biologically impossible for him to be my father. Evelyn's perfectly composed face crumpled like tissue paper in rain. For once, the careful mask slipped completely. Who? I asked. She shook her head, tears spilling onto her emerald dress. 36 years, I said. You've been lying to me for 36 years. Rowan looked genuinely shocked. This, at least, was not part of their shared conspiracy. You didn't betray me today. I stood, gathering my evidence back into Walter's portfolio. You've been doing it my whole life. The dining room fell silent except for the sound of my mother's quiet weeping. For the first time in my life, the sound brought me no distress, no rush to comfort her. The burden of maintaining family. Peace lifted from my shoulders like a physical weight. I walked toward the door, Talia and Nash following behind me. The betrayers remained at the table, surrounded by the wreckage of china, crystal, and lies. The next morning, light filtered through the plantation shutters of my home office, casting ladder-like shadows across the polished mahogany desk. I sat surrounded by case files, manila folders, and legal pads, the familiar tools of my profession, now arranged in precise stacks. My phone rested on the corner of the desk, screen lit with notifications. 37 text messages. 16 voicemails. 4 email chains. I hadn't opened a single one. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed 9 times. I'd been awake since 4 when sleep became impossible, and the walls of our bedroom, my bedroom now, felt like they were closing in. I escaped. To my office, to the comfort of legal precedent and clear boundaries. I clicked open my laptop, the familiar rhythm of my morning routine now foreign in this new reality. A fleeting moment of doubt washed over me. Did I go too far? Was the public humiliation necessary? The memory of Rowan's face when the hotel footage appeared answered my question. Not surprise. Guilt. She knew exactly what she was doing. The doorbell rang, pulling me from the thought. Through the window, I spotted Talia's copper-colored SUV in the driveway. The scent of fresh coffee reached me before she did, appearing in my doorway with 2 large cups and a determined expression. You look terrible, she said, placing 1 cup on my desk, which means you're holding up better than I expected. I accepted the coffee, warming my hands around the cup. I haven't slept. Of course you haven't. Talia settled into the leather chair opposite my desk. No platitudes, no useless comfort. This is why she's been my friend for 15 years. You did what needed to be done. Did I? The question emerged before I could stop. Marin. Her voice sharpened. Don't you dare second-guess yourself, not after what they did. My phone buzzed again, illuminating Rowan's name. I turned it face down. Nash called this morning, Talia continued, sipping her coffee. Jace cleared out his closet around midnight. He's staying at the Marriott downtown. And Rowan's boutique was dark when he drove by. No. Sign of her opening today. I nodded, a small satisfaction blooming despite myself. The boutique my money helped build. Your husband's affair funded her dream, Talia said flatly, while you worked 70-hour weeks so they could play house in Carmel. The anger I'd kept carefully contained began to simmer again. I opened my email, needing distraction, but found Evelyn's name at the top of my inbox. Subject. Line. Family matters. Private discussion required. I read it aloud to Talia. Marin, while I understand you're upset, there are more appropriate ways to address family concerns than the spectacle you created last night. We should discuss this privately as a family before irreparable damage is done. Your behavior suggests emotional instability that concerns me deeply. Talia snorted. Classic Evelyn. Make it about your mental state instead of their betrayal. My voicemail notification blinked. I pressed the speaker and Rowan's voice filled the room, thick with tears. Marin, please call me back. I know what we did was wrong, but it wasn't what you think. Jace and it just happened. We never meant to hurt you. Please, let me explain. I'm your sister. I deleted the message before she could finish. Half-sister, I corrected to the empty air. There's more, Talia warned, scrolling through her own phone. Jace is telling people you violated his privacy with illegal surveillance. He's threatening legal action. A bitter laugh escaped me. Let him try. Everything Nash did was completely legal. He knows that. He's just hoping to scare me. My office phone rang, the line connected to my law firm. I answered cautiously. Marin? It's Barbara Maxwell. My neighbor from 3 doors down and the wife of my firm's founding partner. I saw Evelyn at Starbucks this morning. She mentioned you're going through a difficult time. Something about a nervous breakdown? John and I are concerned. My fingers tightened around the receiver. Barbara, I appreciate your concern, but I'm perfectly fine. I've discovered some difficult truths about my marriage, but my mental health is intact. After assuring her I'd be in the office tomorrow, I hung up and met Talia's gaze. She's already spinning the narrative, I said quietly, making me the unstable one. Of course she is, Talia leaned forward. What's your counterattack? Silence. I closed my laptop with a decisive click. For now, I have a meeting with Catherine Langford at 11. The divorce attorney? Smart. I need to see my father first. 2 hours later, I stood beside Walter Sullivan's grave in the veterans section of Cypress View Memorial. American flags dotted the landscape, fluttering in the gentle June breeze. His headstone was simple: name, rank, dates. The man who raised me for 36 years, coached my softball games, helped with science projects, walked me down the aisle. Not my biological father. I placed white roses on the granite marker, my throat tight. You were my real father in every way that matters. The cemetery remained silent except for distant traffic and the soft rustle of leaves. I knelt beside the headstone, brushing away fallen leaves with careful fingers. Do you remember when Tommy Reynolds pushed me down in 4th grade? I spoke softly, as if Walter might hear me. You sat me down that night and told me that standing up for myself wasn't the same as starting a fight. The memory washed over me, Walter's patient voice, his weathered hands folded in his lap as he explained the difference between aggression and self-defense. Truth isn't always pretty, Marin, he had said, but it's always worth finding. I stood, brushing grass from my knees. I found it, Dad. I just wish you were here to help me carry it. The weight in my chest shifted, not lighter, but somehow more balanced, more manageable. I straightened my shoulders and walked back to my car with purposeful steps. That evening, I sat at my dining room table, the scene of last night's revelation now transformed into a makeshift recording studio. A professional microphone stood before me, connected to my laptop. Talia watched from across the table as I adjusted the settings on the recording software. "Are you sure about this?" she asked. I nodded, placing headphones over my ears. People like my family count on silence. It's time to break it. I pressed record, and my attorney's voice emerged, measured, factual, devoid of the trembling emotion that still occasionally threatened to overwhelm me. "Welcome to the people who smiled while I sank. My name is Maren Sullivan. Last night, I discovered that my husband of 8 years has been having an affair with my half-sister. But that's not the whole story. This podcast is about family betrayal, financial exploitation, and the path forward when the people you trusted most prove themselves unworthy of that trust." I spoke for 20 minutes, laying out the facts without embellishment or accusation. The affair, the financial deception, the gaslighting that made me question my own instincts for years, the paternity revelation that rocked the foundation of my identity. When I finished recording and uploaded the first episode, I expected to feel exposed, vulnerable. Instead, a curious lightness settled over me. The truth no longer felt like a burden I was carrying alone. By morning, my inbox contained dozens of messages from strangers sharing similar stories of betrayal and recovery. The podcast was trending locally in San Diego. A cousin texted to say he'd heard Evelyn's tennis friends discussing it at the club. The silence was broken, and in its place, I found my voice. The first call came at 6:17 a.m., 3 days after the dinner. Uncle Frank's number flashed on my screen. A man who sent Christmas cards but hadn't spoken directly to me in years. "Maren," he started, his voice carrying that particular tone reserved for wayward children. "Your mother is devastated." I placed my coffee mug on the kitchen counter with deliberate care. "Is she? This isn't like you." The podcast. The public accusations. This isn't how our family handles things. Our family, as if that still existed. How does our family handle things, Uncle Frank? By stealing from each other? By sleeping with each other's spouses. My voice remained level, a skill honed through years of courtroom testimony. A heavy sigh traveled through the phone. "You're not thinking clearly. Your mother only wants what's best for you. She made that clear when she lied about who my father was for 36 years. The silence stretched between us. I ended the call before he could respond. By noon, 4 more relatives had called. By evening, my inbox contained 27 messages from extended family, each one an identical blend of concern and recrimination. The law firm corridors felt different now. Colleagues who once sought my advice suddenly found urgent business elsewhere when I approached. At the partners' lunch, 2 empty chairs bracketed mine. Like parentheses. "Barbara canceled," my assistant murmured, sliding a folder across my desk, and "Thomas had an emergency client meeting. Both had enthusiastically RSVP'd yesterday." I opened my laptop and found an email from a longtime client, considering our options for representation going forward. No explanation needed. Evelyn served on the board of his family foundation. My phone chimed with a notification. Rowan had posted new merchandise on her boutique's Instagram, Family First, emblazoned across cotton t-shirts in delicate script. "Because loyalty matters more than anything." The irony would be laughable if it weren't so calculated. That evening, Talia forwarded a text from our mutual friend Caroline. Jace says Maren is having some kind of breakdown. We're all so worried. I stared at the phone, watching Jace's campaign unfold with textbook precision, character assassination disguised as concern, sympathy-seeking wrapped in worry. The playbook I'd watched my mother use for decades. Time for the countermove, I told Nash over coffee. The next morning, he raised an eyebrow. "The podcast? Episode 2. We record today." The studio was small but professional, walls covered in sound-dampening panels. I adjusted my microphone, notes arranged before me, as Dr. Leanne Howard settled into the chair opposite. The respected psychologist specialized in family trauma. Today, we're discussing gaslighting and emotional manipulation within families. I began, my voice steady. When those closest to you use your trust against you. Dr. Howard leaned forward. Gaslighting is particularly devastating when perpetrated by family members because we're biologically wired to trust our kin group. The conversation flowed naturally, two professionals discussing manipulation tactics I recognized from my own life. Asterisk, you're overreacting. You've always been too sensitive. No one will believe you. Anyway, asterisk Nash joined for the second segment, sharing cases of financial abuse in relationships. The control of resources is about power, not money, he explained. It's designed to keep the victim dependent. I didn't mention Jace or Rowan or my mother by name. I didn't have to. The patterns spoke for themselves. By evening, the episode had 20,000 downloads. By morning, 75,000. By week's end, it was featured on 3 national women's empowerment platforms. Silence protects the wrong people, I said in the final segment, words I'd rehearsed countless times. When you speak truth, you reclaim your own voice. The fallout was swift and satisfying. 2 of Jace's largest clients put their contracts under review. The bank opened an investigation into potentially unauthorized fund transfers from our joint accounts. The local business journal ran a story about foreclosure proceedings against Rowan's boutique expansion. My mother's name disappeared from the patron list of the Arts Foundation she'd served on for 20 years. Meanwhile, my own practice thrived. 3 new clients sought me out, specifically because of the podcast, each escaping financial entanglements with controlling partners. I began specializing in a field I understood too well. The call came exactly 1 week after the second episode aired. Evelyn's number. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Marin. Her voice broke on my name. We need to talk. I believe we said everything at dinner. Please, just coffee, somewhere public. A pause. I just want my daughter back. 2 days later, the coffee shop was neutral territory, equidistant between our homes. I arrived 10 minutes early, claiming a corner table with clear sight lines to the door. She appeared precisely on time, dressed in understated beige, her silver hair artfully arranged, no jewelry except her wedding band, the picture of maternal restraint. Thank you for coming, she said, settling opposite me. Her eyes were rimmed red, tissues clutched in one manicured hand. I said nothing, waiting. I made mistakes, she continued. Terrible ones, but I've always loved you, Marin, always wanted what was best. The speech continued, perfectly calibrated to hit every emotional note. The wounded mother. The family peacemaker, the victim of circumstance. Excuse me, I said when she paused for breath. Restroom. In the small bathroom, I splashed cold water on my face. As I reached for a paper towel, Evelyn's purse, left behind on the counter, chimed with an incoming message. The screen lit up automatically. From Rowan. Asterisk, did she buy it? We need to ahead of this podcast situation before. Asterisk, I didn't read the rest, didn't need to. When I returned to the table, Evelyn dabbed her eyes with a tissue. As I was saying, we just want our family back together. I gathered my coat and bag. Don't bother crying. Mother, I said. I already recorded your greatest performance. Her face froze mid-sorrow. For the next podcast episode, I added, though there was no recording, the one about false reconciliations. I walked out into sunlight, leaving her with her cold coffee and colder calculations, feeling something like peace steal over me for the first time in months. Next week, the cream envelope sat on my desk like a snake coiled to strike. Rowan's looping. Handwriting sprawled across the front, my name in her familiar cursive that always tilted just a bit too far right, as if her words were perpetually falling forward. I traced my fingertip along the sealed edge, feeling the expensive cotton paper she favored for her boutique's thank you notes. Next, to it lay the formal letter from Jace's attorney, threatening defamation action if I released another podcast episode. The legal jargon was impeccable, each paragraph designed to intimidate with references to irreparable harm and malicious intent. I almost admired the craftsmanship. My phone buzzed with a text from Carol Jenkins, who sat on 3 charity boards with my mother. Evelyn looked absolutely devastated at church yesterday. The pastor is concerned about you, Marin. Maybe you could call him. I placed the phone face down without responding. The third act of their performance was right on schedule. The intercom buzzed. Mrs. Westbrook is here to see you, my assistant announced. Talia entered, carrying 2 coffee cups and wearing a look of concern. Another flying monkey arrived, she asked, nodding toward my phone. Carol Jenkins this time. Apparently, Mother has recruited our pastor. Talia handed me a coffee. Your mother works faster than FEMA after a hurricane. And leaves similar destruction. I sipped the coffee, letting the bitter warmth ground me. Rowan wrote, I tapped the envelope. Are you going to read it? My fingers slid under the flap, breaking the seal with a satisfying tear. The scent of her perfume wafted up, coconut and sea salt, the same fragrance she wore the night she sat across from me at my dinner table while sleeping with my husband. I unfolded the heavy stationery and read the first line. Marin, I know words can never undo what happened, but you've always been more than a sister to me. The memory crashed over me like a wave. My 16th birthday. Mother had promised a small celebration dinner, just family. I'd spent the afternoon preparing, baking my own cake because I wanted it to be perfect. 8 o'clock came and went. 9, 10. Near midnight they finally arrived. Mother and 14-year-old Rowan, flushed with excitement from a surprise trunk show at a boutique downtown. We lost track of time, Mother explained, while Rowan modeled her new sundress. My birthday went unmentioned. The cake sat untouched in the refrigerator, where I found it the next morning with a note from Mother. Too many calories anyway, dear. Another memory surfaced, my law school graduation. Standing on the steps of Stanford Law, searching the crowd for my family. Finding them eventually, Rowan holding court among my classmates, Mother beaming beside her. Your sister is considering fashion merchandising, Mother told my constitutional law professor. So much more creative than legal work. And finally, my wedding day. Rowan as my maid of honor, adjusting my veil in the church dressing room. Are you sure about that hairstyle? She'd asked. It's a bit severe for a bride. Later. That night, I overheard her telling Jace, my sister has always settled for safe choices. I'm glad. She finally found someone exciting. I stood and walked to the small fireplace in the corner of my office, a luxury perk of making partner last year. With deliberate movements, I lit a match and touched it to the gas starter. The flame caught immediately, blue at its core with orange licking upward. Marin? Talia watched her coffee cup suspended halfway to her mouth. I held Rowan's letter over the flame, watching as the corner blackened, curled, and ignited. The fire consumed her words quickly, erasing whatever justifications or manipulations she'd crafted without my eyes ever seeing them. Some truths don't need to be heard, I said, watching the paper disintegrate into ash. They just need to burn. The letter crumbled into black flakes that drifted down into the fireplace. I brushed a speck of ash from my fingertips. Talia set down her cup. I've never seen you so calm. Because I finally understand something. I returned to my desk and opened my laptop. Their power only existed because I gave it to them. My podcast interface glowed on the screen. Episode title, How to Rebuild After Betrayal. The red record button pulsed, waiting. Are you sure about this final episode? Talia asked. Jace's lawyer. Can't do anything about verifiable facts. I positioned my microphone. The bank's formal investigation announcement goes public tomorrow. Jace's company called this morning. He's been placed on administrative leave pending review. And Rowan, her landlord, called me looking for her. The boutique's been emptied overnight. Space is already listed for lease. Talia sat forward. Your mother. I pulled up the local newspaper's website. The Community Voices section featured Evelyn's letter prominently, the headline reading, "A mother's plea for forgiveness and family healing." She's playing her final card. I clicked the record button. But I'm not playing anymore. The podcast intro music filled my headphones. My voice flowed with a steadiness that would have been impossible months ago. Welcome to the final episode of The People Who Smiled While I Sank. Today, we're discussing how to rebuild when the foundation you thought was solid turns out to be quicksand. Talia gave me a thumbs up as I spoke. My phone buzzed with another text, then another. I ignored them all. When I finished recording, Nash called with his final report. Case closed successfully, he said. The bank has all they need for potential criminal charges on the financial aspects. Thank you for everything, Nash. After hanging up, I opened my checkbook and wrote a substantial donation to the Family Healing Center, adding a note, in memory of Walter Sullivan, who showed me what true family means. I handed the check to Talia. Would you make sure this gets delivered today? She studied my face. You're really done with them, aren't you? The weight that had pressed on my chest for years felt suddenly lighter. No, I corrected her. I'm finally beginning with me. 1 year later. The morning joggers nod as I pass. Their familiar faces now part of my peaceful routine through Balboa Park. My shoulders no longer hunch against imagined criticism. My stride carries confidence I forgot I possessed. I still marvel at how differently my body moves through the world. A mother and daughter share a bench near the rose garden, heads bent together over what appears to be wedding photos. The daughter gestures excitedly while her mother nods, genuine delight, lighting her weathered face. Their laughter drifts across the path. A familiar ache surfaces, brief, expected. Then it dissolves like morning fog. I grieved what I never had more than what I lost. My home office reflects this new understanding. Gone are the suffocating legal briefs that once towered on every surface. Instead, framed photos line the simplified desk, Talia grinning at our pottery class. My support group celebrating Margaret's 1-year milestone. Nash at the legal foundation's ribbon cutting, his rare smile caught mid-laugh. The china cabinet holds my grandmother's set now. Not hidden away for special occasions that never seemed special enough, but displayed where morning light catches the delicate gold trim. Every day deserves beauty. My journal lies open to yesterday's entry. Therapy session focused on boundary maintenance. Dr. Chen notes my progress in recognizing manipulation attempts without emotional reactivity. The phone calls from extended family have stopped entirely. Relief, not loneliness, fills that silence. Small symbols of reclamation scatter throughout the room. The pearl earrings rest in their proper jewelry box instead of being clutched like talismans. Walter's business card from his construction company sits in a simple frame. Sullivan and Sons, it reads, though he never had biological sons. He claimed me anyway. The contrast strikes me daily, this peaceful solitude versus the anxious compliance that once defined my existence. No one questions my choices here. No one measures my worth against impossible standards. My phone buzzes with updates I no longer seek, but occasionally receive. Jace relocated to Phoenix, rebuilding his marketing practice from scratch. Rowan works retail at a department store, her boutique dreams requiring more integrity than she possessed. Evelyn maintains her La Jolla address, but her social calendar reflects her diminished standing. I feel no satisfaction in their struggles. Revenge tastes bitter when you no longer hunger for it. Their growth matters more than their suffering. Whether they achieve it remains their choice, not my responsibility. Evening brings me to the beach where this journey began. Waves crash against the shore with the same rhythm that once provided my only peace. Now they offer accompaniment to contentment. I slipped the wedding ring from my finger. Kept on throughout the legal proceedings, it feels strange to remove. Now, not painful, just strange, like taking off shoes after a long day. A week later, a small wooden box holds other symbols of my former life. The hotel receipt that started everything. A photo from our wedding day where my smile never reached my eyes. Evelyn's last manipulation attempt. A Christmas card signed, "Your loving mother," as if love could be declared rather than demonstrated. I dig a shallow hole in the sand, place the box carefully inside, and cover it as the tide approaches. Not bitter ceremony, but simple release. The ocean will claim what it will. My legal foundation for victims of financial exploitation opens next month. Nash has agreed to serve on the advisory board. 3 attorneys have already joined our team, each carrying their own stories of betrayal and recovery. New relationships form with deliberate authenticity. Michael from law school calls weekly now, our friendship rekindled on honest ground. Eleanor next door brings soup when I work late, expecting nothing in return but company. The support group has become chosen. Family, bonded by shared understanding rather than shared DNA. Occasional pangs of family loss still surface during holidays. When I see fathers walking daughters down aisles. When mothers and daughters laugh together on park benches. I acknowledge these moments without letting them dominate. Some families we're born into, others we build. The tide reaches my feet as I stand watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of possibility. Tomorrow, I'll return to meaningful work. Tonight, I'll read beside the fireplace, listening to the silence that no longer frightens me. I don't need their forgiveness. I needed to hear myself again. And now I do.